Hello YouTube. Today we are talking about photographing artwork that's in a frame. I often have customers bring pieces in and they're in a frame, they're nervous to take them out to damage them just because it's extra work for whatever reason. A customer brought one in yesterday and it's a canvas that's actually stapled into the frame. So you generally don't need to remove them from the frame. And today we're going to go over some solutions in case you want to shoot it and it's in the frame. First of all, the main reason people worry about it is if there is glass, they are afraid that the glass is going to reflect when the person is taking a photograph. And that is not an issue. First, I use a polarizer when I'm shooting, but on top of that, the angle that the lights are at, even before I used a polarizer, I never had any issues with glass reflecting. So don't worry about the glass. Make sure it's clean and you should be fine. The one thing that is an issue though is the depth of the frame, as your lights, because they're at an angle, can hit the edges of the frame, casting shadows on your pieces, which requires a lot of Photoshop work to get rid of them. So let's look at some ways to get around this problem. All right, so this is the piece that was brought in yesterday and I photographed it today, and you can see it's in a frame. No glass, so that's not an issue, nothing to even think about with this one. And this one actually didn't require really anything because it's got this beveled edge. So it's gonna be different if your frame is a square edge, and also it's just about how far the image is, or the piece is recessed in the frame. This one I shot with my lights in their normal position, and the shadow was like a 1/16 of an inch or so along each side. It was so small, it wasn't even worth messing with. But if it was a little bit bigger, the thing that I would have done would be bring my lights closer to the camera so they're more in front of the piece and they're not going to cast as big a shadow. Obviously, if the light is further off to the side, it's going to cast a bigger shadow across the piece. But personally, I think lighting artwork to photograph looks better and is more accurate if the lights are spread further, because it allows the light to kind of pass in front instead of shining directly on it. And it looks better blending the two lights together to get a nice even light over the piece. So I really don't like to bring my lights too close to the camera. I like to keep them at like a 30 to 45 degree angle from the piece. So let's go ahead and shoot a piece that is going to present more of a problem. All right, so this is a photograph of mine in an old frame that somebody gave me. I don't need to photograph it for any reason, but I figured it would work just to show you how to fix the problem. So it has a little bit of an edge. It still has some curve to it, so it's not nearly as bad as if it was just a square stock frame, but the trick that I'm going to show you will work either way. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to photograph this with my lights in their normal position. And one of the most important things you need to do is you need to shoot a really accurate gray card. I use this to set my exposure in Lightroom when I'm doing my artwork photography. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to shoot this so you can make sure you can set it to an even number 50 in Lightroom. And then what you're going to do is you're going to turn one of your lights off. Now, if you turn one light off, the other light is going to be able to fully illuminate this spot. It's not going to have the other light casting a shadow over this spot. So you're going to turn one light off, you're going to reshoot it, and you're going to shoot this again so you can match your exposure. Now, if it's really different, you can adjust your flash. It's less than a stop that needs to be adjusted in Lightroom, and my camera has a really wide dynamic range, so I get totally fine results just keeping my exposure, my camera settings the same. Shoot this with one light turned off. Remove it, shoot it again. Now turn that light back on, turn your other light off, shoot this again, shoot this again. Now what you're going to end up with is 6 frames. 3 shots of the piece and 3 shots of this card. Now let's jump into the computer and I'll show you where to go from there. Okay, so here we are in Adobe Lightroom with our 6 frames. Now our first frame is just the basic piece. The second one we're going to use to set our white balance and adjust our exposure with this gray card, so the numbers up in the corner under the histogram are all at 50. That means it's an even neutral gray and your exposure is properly set. So you can ignore the other settings over here. They're just from some previous images. Okay, so now we're going to go over to one of the images with the gray carb where one of the lights was off, and we're going to raise our exposure until this hits 50 again. So you can see here our exposure is at plus 80. Same thing with this one, the light for the other side. Exposure is at 51. That's a little bit hot. So right here, now we are at 50 again, and our white balance is adjusted. Sync these settings across all of your images. Then we are going to get our 3 images here, highlight them, and we are going to edit them in Photoshop. Edit as layers in Photoshop. Okay, so now we're in Photoshop with the 3 layers. One is the image with the shadows. You can see the shadows right here. The other 2 are of each side. So we want our image of the shadows on the bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to highlight these, and we are going to File, Edit, Auto Align Layers. The auto setting is fine. Okay, they are aligned. Now let's turn these top 2 layers off. So all we have is the one with the shadows on it. Okay, let's turn on one layer above it. You can see I'm standing right there. This is the one where this side was fully lit. Let's go ahead and let's add a mask. We're going to invert the mask, Command I, and turn it off. Okay, now let's get a brush with white. Gonna go click right here once and go up to the top, push Shift, and it will do a straight line all the way up. There you go. Shadow is gone. Same thing on this layer. Create a mask. Command I, invert the mask. Get your white brush. Click right there. Go up, Shift click right there. There they go. You now have an image with your shadows gone. Crop this and you're good to go. So there it is. It's really that easy. You just use those 3 layers, some quick masking in Photoshop, and the shadows are gone. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, do not hesitate to leave them below, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.